Alrighty, guys. So we got a new spawn drop, which is quite interesting. Sharra. This will be out for another 9 days. You can do the math for because you get one daily Fates Woven Metal. Plus, on the last day, you can get two if you spawn right after the free spawn resets, so that's a possibility as well. So this usually comes out to be somewhere around 700 gems. You'd have to do the math exactly to be able to tell, but I'm going to go over the weapons first. The Star Resolution gear is some of, if not the best gear for specifically racers, and my suggestion is to get them to level 5. Do not ultra rare them, so keep them at SSR and keep them as low level as possible. So this means using, I think the best way to do this is by using these guys, these little ones here. Those, I believe, give the least experience. So that's probably the best way to do it. Now, for the defense gear, oh, and besides racing, I mean, this gear is fine for PvE and PvP. It's much better in PvE. You can use it. I use it just as filler gear because it's really easy to stack. But I would say that this gear for free-to-play players and new players in PvE is probably around the 7 to 8 out of 10 mark. It does a lot of things, but for certain classes it can be really bad. It doesn't give any success value, and there are a lot of classes that require success value, so it depends on your class. You'd have to check which abilities you're using. Make sure to use your dual scaling abilities, and then check the accuracy. As far as like for PvP and guild battles, they are like 5 or 6 out of 10. They do the crit, and that is really important. They also do sustain you for Unison and cost really well, but they are missing penetration. That's the main thing that they're missing. Now, for the armors, in my opinion, these armors are some of the best, if not the best armors in the entire game. If you're going into specifically high-level PvP, there's only one option, and this is not it. You'll have to watch my guide. I don't think I ever... now that I think about it, I don't think I ever made a guide for how to successfully survive. I'll do that eventually, probably this summer. But this is not the gear if you're wanting to do high-level PvP and 1v1s and or guild battle stuff and like survive penetration attacks. You have to use percent damage down moves. So these aren't it. But in almost every single situation, these are really good. These are the best PvE gear, and this is still some of the best PvP and guild battle gear just as regular gear. If the enemies don't have really powerful sets with penetration and stuff like that, then this is the best gear in the game. So, following that, let's talk about Sharra. She is Star. She's got 2 on the red side. She hits 5 times at 500 ability powder, so pretty weak. Don't expect to kill anything. All allies changes cost to 50 as a demerit. This is a pretty interesting demerit. I've kind of talked about this before, but setting 50 cost is really bad in some situations and really good in others. So for example, if you have no cost, this will set your cost to 50. If you have 150 cost, this will set your cost to 50. And with most abilities being super, super expensive, the high damage abilities, this is really bad for things like PvE. However, when it comes to guild battles and first round clashes, when you have very little cost to begin with, this can be really good, but let's see if the rest of it is any good. Blessing, the main thing is reduces cooldown times by 50%. So helps you cycle faster. Kijin is pretty good. Rage and Serenity. Serenity is quite powerful in my opinion, because when it expires, you get 100% uni. But keep in mind that combined, Rage and Serenity is equivalent to essentially just Dawn. They don't stack with other things, and they don't stack with bubbles either. Finally, gives you Phalanx, which is not that great. It's a defensive bubble. Mostly, when it pops, you get your effects. Now on the blue side, all enemies removes special debuffs and buffs. Kind of interesting. This is the main reason why I think you would use her, is during elemental battles, when Unison effects are used, the value of light element weakening effects on monsters are reduced by 10%. And same thing for dark percent. So essentially what that means is when you're in a clash, like something like guild battle, and you throw something like time like Dark Star, this monster will decrease the light and dark number value that they obtained 10% more. That's my understanding of it. And that is really good for winning guild battle clash. 10%, I believe there's 5 monsters, and most of the time when you throw, it's around 120k. So you are looking at, if you divide that by 5, what is that, like 10,000 for each? So you're getting an extra few K, yeah, of decrease, which could actually win you the guild battle. You'd have to, of course, it would come down to the clash itself, but it may win you the clash. So that's the main reason I think you'd use her. Now, all allies, same thing, reduces cost to 50, blessing, Kijin, and then Phalanx again. So a really defensive bubble, one of the worst, in my opinion, in most situations. In something like PvE, where you're doing questing, both of these forms are absolutely garbage. The main reason is because you're reducing your cost by 50. Of course, you can recover that using other things. The Blessing is nice, the Kijin is nice, but there are so many other monsters that give Blessing and Kijin plus 200% or ability power boost. They give other things as well, including the Kijin or the Blessing. And Rage and Serenity also both very common to just come on monsters. Even PvP monsters usually have stuff like that, alongside with the worst bubble, or one of the worst bubbles for PvE. Overall, this monster is really bad. I would say 2 out of 10 for PvE just would not be worth it. In fact, it may actually throw the match, because you are setting your entire team's cost to 50. So unless somebody else threw another monster that boosted cost, this could just straight up kill a good run. Now, when it comes to PvP, really bad. The main thing that you're wanting in PvP is somebody that can kill the 700 ability power 3 times. Even though it penetrates, that's great. The problem is most people recognize that star monsters do a lot of damage, so they intentionally prioritize time monsters and other monsters that give time unity defense. And 3 hits is not enough to successfully kill a lot of players. And also 700 ability power is significantantly weaker than what you would usually expect from a star monster. So overall, it's not very useful. The fact that it removes special debuffs and buffs is kind of interesting. I don't know if fortification counts as one of those buffs, but I assume that it would remove things like resurrection. I am not also sure if it would remove something like miracle, but regardless, it's better to just throw somebody like Queen, and then all of your other monsters will one-shot because of the Nebulous Eclipse. So overall, you're comparing it to monsters like Pandora and Queen, and it just doesn't stack up. I'd say probably a 2 out of 10 The main reason why in PvP I'm giving it a 2 out of 10, mainly because it gives Kijin, and that's it. It doesn't give diffusion either. You're just missing a lot of stuff. Now, when it comes to guild battles, first round clash is horrible. It doesn't uni boost, so you're not going to be able to uni chain. And with crystals becoming more powerful, and in order to one-shot you need stronger buffs, it's not going to be a useful first round clash monster. With that being said, for second round clash and any other types of clashes, when you're trying to win the uni, this is a really powerful monster. Being able to beat both light and dark, which are very common monster colors, is very, very valuable. And if you're wanting to win the uni, people who usually win the uni win the game. So that on its own is fantastic. The main problem is that you need Nebulous Eclipse in order to be killing people nowadays. And this monster doesn't give Nebulous Eclipse. In fact, the only monster that gives Nebulous Eclipse that is a light, dark, star, time monster is Queen. And because she's the star monster and you only throw one star monster, this can't be part of the throw. Now, of course, you could always throw some modified version of something. Like, for example, you could throw like Star or Starlight Dark, or and then something like Water as well. You know, you could throw a modified version and maybe you could convince me. But you really need high damage monsters in a time like dark star throw, and really you need Queen. So usually you would have your first monster throw a negative field in order to break the enemy's potential negative field that exists. So the negative field protection. So your first monster will break the protection. Your second monster is Queen, and your Queen will apply Nebulous Eclipse. Then the remaining three monsters are there to buff and one-shot. And because this spot is taken up by Queen, it's really not a good time or situation for this monster to exist. Realistically, without a monster like Queen, this would be a probably 8 out of 10 for second round clash, just to help you win. But nowadays with Queen, you have to move this to another spot, and that greatly reduces this monster. If I owned this monster, I would never use it, because why would I use this monster when I could use Queen? And I have Queen. So it's one of those things that this monster came out and it's already power crept. Because Queen applies Nebulous Eclipse, and Nebulous Eclipse turns off your passives, your constant effects, and your constant effects are things like, let's see, your Xenos Gear is considered a passive effect. It's considered a constant right there. And Xenos Gear reduces the incoming damage by a percentage. And these are the main pieces of gear that will keep you alive. So just overall, Queen is superior in every way just because of Nebulous Eclipse. So you're basically never going to throw this monster unless you don't have Queen. And because of that, it's a very unfortunate monster. Honestly, it's kind of sad, but I'm going to say this monster's a 4 out of 10. You're basically only using this monster in a second round clash for anyone because you don't have Queen. And if you don't have Queen, you're probably not throwing Time Light Dark Star. You're probably throwing Pandora's, because that's the only way to kill people. Yeah, so very unfortunate. This monster overall kind of sucks. Now, when it comes to your backline 5 monster, let's see what the awakenings are. The 60k is nice. That is what we expect from 45 cost monsters. The lethargy and frail resistance used to be very, very powerful. Lethargy and frail, those are the ones that prevent you. Their debuffs, I don't know if they're considered special debuffs. I don't think so. I think they're, not debuffs, status elements. I don't know if they're considered special status ailments, but essentially what they are is they prevent you from proccing offensively and proccing defensively. So when you attack, you can't offensively proc. When you defend, when somebody attacks you, you can't defensively proc. 1,000 star uni defense is really powerful. Remember, star beats light and dark, so you're getting essentially 2,000. And confusion and prohibit unison resistance by 70. That is pretty common for a lot of monsters, but with so many monsters applying things like 170% unity chance, you really need strong monsters in the backline to buff up your uni resistance. As a backline 5 monster, just having this, especially for free-to-play players and for newer players, this is a really strong monster. I would say that you can use this monster for quite a while just because of the uni resistance and the strong uni defense. I'd say this is a solid 6 out of 10 for a backline 5 monster. For free-to-play players and newer players, probably like an 8 out of 10. But yeah, this monster overall for PvE is like, it's just really bad. Like a 2 out of 10, PvP, 2 out of 10, Clash, 5 out of 10. Really not useful for anyone. And it's kind of disappointing, especially when you compare this monster to other monsters that are also star woven. For example, Artistine is really powerful. Time extends, applies elemental advantage, applies diffusion, applies buff removal resistance, applies blessing and siege, which applies vital strikes. Like, this one monster is really, really powerful. Same thing when you compare it to another one. 200%. Recovers 100 cost, gives 50 uni, applies Dawn, Skirmish. I mean, like, when you compare these monsters, it's obvious that Sharra is bad. I just wouldn't spawn this monster. Just skip it. All right, that's pretty much everything. I will catch you guys later.